Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to compare Apple's last three flagship phones, the iPhone 14 Pro Max, the iPhone 15 Pro Max, and the brand new iPhone 16 Pro Max. At first glance, they all look pretty similar, but there are some key differences that might help you decide whether it's time to upgrade or not. So let's dive in. So I'm going to try to keep these phones in order throughout the video, that way you're not confused. On the left hand side I have the 14 Pro Max, right in the middle I have the 15 Pro Max, and then on my right hand side I have the brand new 16 Pro Max. So let's start off with the side. From the front, all three iPhones are pretty much close in terms of aesthetics. However, if you look closely, you'll notice that the bezels get just a little bit smaller with each generation. Apple is all about refinement, and the iPhone 16 Pro Max has the slimmest bezels yet. Also, the iPhone 16 Pro Max is slightly bigger than its predecessors, though it might be hard to tell unless you put them side by side. So I'm going to go ahead and put them side by side just so you can see. I'm going to lay them down. This is the 14 Pro Max, 15 Pro Max, and then the 16 Pro Max. So as far as dimensions, the 15 Pro Max is slightly smaller, although it does keep that 6.7 inch screen. And that's due to the bezels. Apple was able to reduce the overall dimension of the phone while keeping the 6.7 inch screen. So in terms of size, the 15 Pro Max would be the smallest, followed by the 14 Pro Max, and then the 16 Pro Max is bigger just because it went to a 6.7 inch screen. Putting them side by side, it's still difficult to tell which one is bigger. Even though you can very easily tell that the bezels on the 14 Pro Max are significantly bigger. And these two is a little bit harder to tell, but the 16 Pro Max has the slimmest bezels around the screen. Like I mentioned earlier, the screen is now a 6.9 inch screen compared to the previous 6.7 inch display. That little extra screen space might make a difference for gaming and watching videos. Now, both the 15 Pro Max and the 16 Pro Max are made of a titanium frame, which makes them lighter compared to the 14 Pro Max stainless steel frame. The edges on the titanium models are also smoother compared to the 14 Pro Max, which was made out of stainless steel. I'm not sure if you'll be able to pick this up on the video, but these are much more squared off versus these right here are more of a rounded edge. The edges are smoother, so the titanium models definitely feel better in hand. However, most of us just put them in a case, so not sure how much that matters to you. I do like to take mine out of the case for special occasions or things like that, so I do prefer the smoother edges. Now let's talk about performance. While the A16 Bionic chip on the 14 Pro Max and the A17 Pro chip in the 15 Pro Max are powerhouses all in their own right, the 16 Pro Max has taken things up just a notch with the new A18 chip. Apple claims that this one is about 15% faster, and it also offers more power efficiency, which at the end of the day means better battery life. But in day-to-day use, are you really going to notice that speed jump? Unless you're doing some super heavy tasks like video editing or intensive gaming, the difference might not be as noticeable for regular users. Now let's talk about the cameras. So let me flip these over real quick. All three models have great cameras, but the 16 Pro Max brings some noticeable upgrades. For one, the 48 megapixel ultra-wide camera is a significant improvement over the 12 megapixel ultra-wide camera on both the 15 and the 14 models. The 16 Pro Max also has the new camera control button, which adds the cool layer of functionality for those who like taking pictures. You can now quickly access the camera with one tap. You can tap again to take a picture. You can zoom in and out by sliding up and down. And also a double tap will do one thing and a single tap will do another thing. I've been trying to use the camera control button as much as possible, but I'm not used to it yet. I love the idea of it, but not sure about the actual functionality of it just yet. To open the camera and snap a quick picture or a video, I think it's great. But for the other functions like zooming in or navigating the different functions, I think it's still not useful. I find myself going back to the controls on the actual screen, and I'll probably make a complete different video on the camera control button all by itself. There's a lot to dive in there, but as of right now, I just don't know how much it really is going to be useful rather than accidentally activating it and taking random pictures. Now the question becomes, for the casual users, Is the camera upgrade enough to justify moving from the 14 or the 15 Pro Max? In my opinion, unless you need one of the modes that the newer models have that the older models don't, then all these cameras are pretty comparable. If you do like to record in slow motion at 120 frames per second in 4K, then you absolutely want to upgrade to the 16 Pro Max. But if that's not something you do, the 14 or the 15 are still just fine. And even I would venture to say that the 12 and the 13 are still great cameras. Now, as I mentioned before, with the chip upgrade, battery life has also improved with each model. And Apple now claims that the 16 Pro Max has the best battery life of any iPhone to date. If you're the kind of person that pushes your phone hard all day, this might be a good reason to upgrade, especially if you felt that the battery on your older model just wasn't cutting it. However, you could simply replace the battery on your older device for about $100. For me, spending $100 on a device that's anywhere from $1,000 to $1,500 makes perfect sense. If you replace the battery, it might help you wait at least another year or two before you upgrade. Of course, the iPhone 16 Pro Max introduces the new Apple Intelligence features, but those won't be available until iOS 18.1. And yes, we are getting closer, but they're still not available yet. So that's something to keep in mind if you're excited about all those AI-driven capabilities. If the AI features are important to you, it might be worth upgrading, but just keep in mind the AI features will also be coming to the iPhone 15 Pro and 15 Pro Max. The iPhone 16 Pro Max also has new charging improvements, offering about 50% charge in just 30 minutes. There were rumors that a possible fast charging at 45 watts was going to be available, but unfortunately that seems not to be true. During my testing, it only got to around 35 watts. So are the changes enough to justify upgrading from the 14 Pro Max or the 15 Pro Max to the 16 Pro Max? That really depends on what you value the most in your phone. The new camera control button and the improved battery life are definitely appealing, but for everyday users, the difference might not be as groundbreaking. If somebody were to ask me, hey, is it worth upgrading from the 15 Pro Max to the 16 Pro Max? It would be a resounding no, unless, once again, the camera control button is something that you wanted, or the slow motion video at 120 frames per second in 4K was something that you absolutely needed to do. So what do you think? Are you planning to stick around with your current iPhone, or is the 16 Pro Max on your radar? Let me know below in the comments. Don't forget to hit that like button if you enjoyed the video, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next video.